Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stewardship Network's monthly webcast. My name is Rob Luzinski, and I am standing in for Lisa Brush today. Very excited to be here. Go ahead while you're joining us and use the chat to tell us who you are and what organization you're a part of, if that's relevant, and where you're tuning in from. And I will let you know that I am once again Rob Luzinski with the Stewardship Network. I am the community coordinator, and I am tuning in from Detroit, Michigan, and it is looking beautiful outside right now where I'm at. We'll just wait another moment or so as I'm checking in on participants and how that's growing. Hello, Kirsten. Thanks for joining. Hello, Lisa. Hope I'm doing you justice in my hosting capabilities. Hello, Brett from upstate New York. Great to have you. Heather, so nice to have you. Melville, thank you for coming. Madison. Renee Zimmerman. Amanda. Oh, this is great. I'm seeing some familiar names, some new names. Lynn, nice to have you here. Okay, so I think people joining has leveled off just a bit. Hello, Janine. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we will let other folks join us as they are able. So once again, thank you for tuning in to the Stewardship Network's monthly webcast for April 2023. So a little bit about us. The Stewardship Network is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with an award-winning 20-year history. We are now serving 20 place-based member communities from the Great Lakes to the Pacific Ocean, and we're continuing to try to expand. So if you know anyone that's trying to get involved, please put them in touch with us. And our free TSN webcasts happen on the second Wednesday of each month at the Eastern Time Zone's noon hour. So you can put this as a recurring date on your calendar and tune in on our website to learn about the upcoming webcasts. Our mission is to connect, equip, and mobilize people and organizations to care for land and water in their communities. As we all know, field season is coming. The weather is warming up, and we're gearing up for a lot of fun and a lot of work. And the Stewardship Network is very aware of this, and we'd like to let you know that we can help. And so I'd like to talk about a couple of the different initiatives we have going on during field season that you may want to take advantage of. So first is our Gloves for Good program. Such a wonderfully, surprisingly successful program. I'll just rattle off a couple stats to you real quick, but we have diverted over 14,000 pairs of gloves from going to the landfill, and which amounts to 1,030 pounds of waste avoided from landfills. And we've prevented 1.28 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, saving recipients of these gloves over $20,000 total. So the general idea is that we get gently used gloves from a supplier, and we wash those and we pair them. And then our wonderful glove volunteer, Sarah, coordinates with folks that fill out the form on our website, and we'll let you pick them up for free from our Ann Arbor office, or we can ship them to you. And all we ask is that you pay for the cost of shipping. So it is an efficient and sustainable and affordable way to equip your volunteers with gloves. So we encourage you to check that out. Stewardshipnetwork.org/events is where you'll find our event calendar. So you can both submit events that your organization has coming up, as well as search for events in your area. We have several different categories and tags that you can search by, and you can also search by location. A couple that we have coming up, there is a Dunes and Plovers webinar coming up from, I believe it's the Michigan Environmental Council, this Friday. And then there are several stewardship workdays happening this weekend as well in the Ann Arbor area and beyond. So we encourage you to check out the event calendar and submit your events, and also search there if you're looking for opportunities. Last but not least, we have the Stewardship Network job board. And so that's another opportunity for you to submit job postings that you might have, and also to search for jobs that you might be interested in. We actually have a deadline today for applying to be a project coordinator at the East Bay Regional Park District in Oakland, California. So if anybody's interested in that, the deadline's today, so go ahead and check it out. And we also have a few natural resource management intern spots available with Shio Township Parks. And that's in Michigan. So go ahead and check out the job board if you're interested in anything that's available there, and feel free to submit your job postings. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the Spring Challenge kickoff. Today officially marks the beginning of the Spring Challenge. So it'll be going from April 12th until June 30th. And I'd like to tell you a little bit more about the Spring Challenge and how you can get involved. So a little bit of context before we get started on that. Throughout the years, the challenge has been built to increase the impact and awareness of collaborative stewardship activities since 2008. Formerly known as the Garlic Mustard Challenge, many of you maybe have participated back then. And then more recently, it was known as the Spring Invasive Species Challenge. And the work has always been happening. You know, we're not taking credit for the work that's being done, but the Spring Challenge asks us to unite and, whatever your role, do more together. So it's about doing the most that you can as an individual, as a part of your organization, but then as a part of the collective whole that is the Stewardship Network. So a little bit about the value to participants. Some groups find that this challenge helps with their data management, and some use the big group number to command attention. So you can say, our group contributed X amount of work hours to the grand total of this amazing collection of stewardship work that's happening all across the country. Some groups enjoy being celebrated on TSN social channels, and some just like being a part of the challenge for the camaraderie. And some individuals find inspiration in the spirit of it all, and some say how they got to know TSN and or participant groups where they live. So if you end up submitting to the Spring Challenge as an individual, and we recognize that there's a partner organization or a member community of ours in your area, we'll put you in touch and we'll say, you know, you should really be aware of these amazing groups that are in your area, and maybe you can find ways to participate as well. We rebooted the challenge in 2022. So that's when it became the Spring Challenge. And it's the most inclusive version of the program that we've ever conducted. We expanded the types of work that you can do. We did our best to account for geography. We tried to make it a wide timeline for the people who still have snow on the ground in our northern regions and all of that. So that's been really great. And we did a grand total of 36,745 hours from a record-breaking 7,133 total participants. That is an incredible number, and something that all of us can be proud to be a part of as we participate in the Spring Challenge. That also accounts for over $1.1 million of work hour value poured into our ecosystems, with an awesome mix of old and new categories represented. So we're seeing people do invasive species polls, as we did in the past with the Garlic Mustard Challenge and the Spring Invasive Species Challenge, but we're also seeing a lot of new categories: prescribed burns, educational events, monitoring, all of the above. So we've increased the focus a little bit this year in 2023. So there is a report pillar, there is a donate pillar, and that's it. There's only 2 pillars. We wanted to focus the challenge this year and make it as easy as possible for people to understand how to participate. So we are focusing on these main 2 pillars. The report pillar, and you see up there the URL to visit in order to report. Hours remain the primary metric. And so we're asking you to tell us how many people participated and how many work hours you did. So if it was me going out there with a friend, the 2 of us working for an hour, 2 people times 1 hour is 2 total work hours. We encourage you to report early and often with our easy online form. And you can see again that URL above. And we will shout out your rolling do more achievements and honor those that do the most at the end. A couple new aspects of the report. We've slightly updated our categories this year based on data, and we also have an other category. So if you don't see your type of activity on the reporting form, that's okay. As long as it counts as stewardship, then we are happy to have you submit under that other category. We've also replaced winners with honors to respect that some people are not as interested in the competition element, but also to encourage people that want to get a little competitive and want to play the game of the Spring Challenge to still get that recognition. We also have TSN Spring Challenge boosts that reward you for regular entries. And so if you submit an entry 1 week, then you are entered into a drawing to win one of the great prizes we have on our website. You can learn more on the website. And also, if you are representing an organization, then they will get a chance to get one of those prizes as well. So a little bit more about the boost once again. As I said, we'll draw a random report and award that prize, a prize of their choice from the growing collection. If that report was made with an affiliation, then that group gets a prize too. And the goal is to thank you for reporting as you go and for representing your local stewardship groups. So rather than accumulating all of your data and then submitting it all at the end, we would love it if you would submit on a weekly basis. Don't necessarily need to do it every day. If you do 3 work days, don't worry about trying to do it every single day. If you want to, go ahead. But at least on a weekly basis, we would really appreciate that. And so the prizes are a token of our appreciation and nothing too fancy, but there are some pretty great prizes in there. So I encourage you to go check those out. We find them fun, useful, or both. And the boosts are made possible in part by in-kind donations and also through a grant from the Consumers Energy Foundation. So thank you to Consumers Energy for supporting the Spring Challenge. The other important aspect of the challenge is the donate pillar. So in the past, you may remember that we've done spring drives, spring fundraising drives, and we've instead decided to combine the two initiatives so that folks that are maybe less doing on the ground stewardship can still have a way to participate and to support the great work that all of these organizations are doing. So we have some generous donors that have agreed to match all TSN donations during the spring challenge 1-to-1. So your $10 becomes $20, your $20 becomes $40, et cetera, et cetera. It's an amazing opportunity. This operational funding will be hugely influential in TSN's trajectory as an organization and will empower us to maintain our momentum. We do these monthly webcasts because originally we got a grant to create them, and now we just do them because we love doing them and we love bringing you all together and we love bringing you this information. And your support is what allows us to continue doing the monthly webcast, among other programs. We appreciate you so much for your support. And once again, stewardshipnetwork.org/donate if you would like to contribute. Speaking of momentum, we have some exciting news on the member community front. I have been hard at work trying to connect with new groups and to respond to any inquiries that we've been having about the member communities program. And I'm so happy to announce that we have 2 new TSN member communities to introduce you to today. And thank you, Bob, for making this amazing little GIF. I hope that I pronounced that right. I believe this is Animal Crossing, and I need to get more hip on my video games, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But so introducing the Golden Gate Biosphere Network, spanning across 5 counties in the San Francisco Bay Area and reaching 200 miles out into the Pacific Ocean. And then we would also like to welcome the Barry, Calhoun, and Kalamazoo Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, BCK CISMA for short, and that's spanning 3 counties in Michigan, Barry, Calhoun, and Kalamazoo. And I have to thank Alex Florian from the Southwest by Southwest CISMA for putting us in touch with BCK and putting in a great word. Alex, we really appreciate you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily McNally, who is the field coordinator at the Oakland County CISMA, and her presentation, CISMAs, Invasive Species, and You. Emily, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome on this beautiful day. I'm tuning in from Genesee County in Michigan, but I work in Oakland. So I'll be talking about Oakland County today, and I'll just pull up my PowerPoint real quick.
Excellent.
And then share. All right, does that look good?
Yes, it does.
All right, perfect. So like I said, I'm from Oakland County CISMA. We are in Michigan. I'll do the Michigan thing where we're down here. So we're the only 1 county CISMA in Michigan, but everywhere in Michigan has a CISMA. And CISMAs are Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. And we just recently merged with Oakland County Parks. So that's why you see the Oakland County Parks logo on there as well. And I'll talk about that partnership in a little bit. All right, so like I said, we're the CISMA. We have 40+ partners, including municipalities, so cities, villages, townships throughout the county, as well as nonprofit organizations, land conservancies, universities, and more. And we're now part of Oakland County Parks and Rec, thanks to a county millage that passed. So previously we were just grant funded through the state, and those were grants you had to apply for almost every year to make sure you had funding. So now we get more funding that way to be able to do more treatment, do more management, and education about invasive species. So our main shtick is that we collaborate across Oakland County. We seek to support functioning ecosystems and enhance quality of life through this invasive species management. So a couple of portions of that are prevention and education, as well as early detection and rapid response to new emerging invasives, and collaborative long-term management. So I'm sure most of you tuning in today already know what an invasive species is, but in case there's some newbies out there, I just put the general definition that we use. So an invasive species is one that is not native and whose introduction causes or is likely to cause harm to Michigan's economy, environment, or human health. So this can be anything from a fish like the Asian carp to terrestrial plants like invasive bittersweet, aquatic plants, bugs like our new friend here in Michigan, Oakland County, the spotted lanternfly, not really a friend, you know, that's a joke, right? Phragmites, and as well as red swamp crayfish. So we have most of these here now in Oakland County, except for Asian carp, knock on wood. So why are these species a problem? So these species generally come from a different country, a different region that has natural predators where they're kept in check, but once they come over here, there's no natural predators for them. So nothing is eating them, or very few things are eating them. So they harm native plants by forming these monocultures because they're not being destroyed. They can also change the soil chemistry and unbalance the ecosystem as a whole. And additionally, they harm wildlife. So like our turtle friend down here, if the pond or swamp he lives in is filled with Phragmites, if you've seen that, you know how dense it can get. He's gonna have a hard time walking through there, getting up to shore to lay eggs, finding other turtles to mate with. And this can affect ducks too, and humans. So if you're trying to get in your lake that you live on, it's gonna be hard if you have to wade through Phragmites. So this is the invasion curve you're probably all familiar with. So a lot of the species we deal with in Oakland County are already pretty abundant. So I'll talk about the main ones we deal with, but Phragmites is one of them. So we're really just managing them at this point on the long term. But there are some species still coming in all the time. So like this past year, we had spotted lanternfly show up. So that was the first introduction here. So we really jumped on board with that with MDARD and took care of it, treated the site, and they're doing extensive surveys to see, like, is it anywhere else? And so far, I have not heard of anywhere else. So we're hoping that stays that way. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple of our main species that we deal with. So this is kind of like the top 4 baddies that we have here. So the first is Phragmites australis, or common reed. So that's a really tall reed that grows up to 20 feet tall, often in really dense monocultures, so it's not going to be good for the wildlife. They have extensive underground rhizomes, so that biomass you see above ground is nothing compared to what's below ground. So because of this, it can be really hard to treat. It takes multiple years to get rid of a huge dense stand. They can cause safety concerns, so you'll see them flopping over the roadway, causing blocks of road view. They're also a fire hazard. They burn very, very hot, so when they catch fire, it's hard to put them out. And they also negatively impact your property values. So if you live on a nice lake, you know, you want to see the water, you want to see the wildlife, but if there's a dense stand of Phragmites, you're not going to be able to see that, so it's going to knock down your property values. This can be treated chemically and mechanically. So mechanically works if you do a cut and drown method. So if you're cutting the Phragmites under the water and continuously keep it under the water, it'll essentially drown and kill the plant. Also chemical methods have worked fairly well as well. Another one is the invasive knotweeds. So the Japanese knotweeds, the giant knotweeds, and then their hybrid, the Bohemian knotweed. So what we mostly have here in Oakland County is the hybrid Bohemian knotweed. So it's going to be a mix of the leaf shapes of the giant and the Japanese and a mix of the height of the two. But in general, it's a perennial herbaceous shrub with simple alternate broad leaves. And it has these numerous green-white flowers on these little stalks here. It's very easy to see when it's blooming. It looks pretty unique and it is pretty. The pollinators love it. You'll see bees all over it. The bad thing about this plant is it can really damage your infrastructure, including breaking through your house foundations, breaking through pavement, things like that. So this plant, if you didn't know, comes from a region where there is volcanic activity. So it's evolved over time to lie in wait under that hardened volcanic rock and then grow back up through it. So it's a very strong plant. This one to control requires multiple strategies, such as cutting it multiple times to deplete the nutrients underground and then treating it with an herbicide. Another one we deal with a lot is the black and pale swallowworts. So this is a perennial herbaceous vine we have here with opposite narrow leaves with pointed tips. The pale have this small pinkish purple flowers and the black has darker flowers. The plants are toxic to livestock and other wildlife, so you don't want this getting in your horse pasture or in your cow farm, anything like that. Multiple control strategies are required for this one as well. We've used herbicide in the past and that's worked as well. You can pull up the small babies and you can also just get rid of the seed pods. So if you have a plant that's producing a lot of seeds, just take off the pods before they go to seed and they spread everywhere. That's going to help you in the next year. All right, this one is near and dear to me. I've worked on this for many years now. European Frogbit. This was discovered in Oakland County in 2018, and we've been working on it ever since. This is a free-floating aquatic plant. It has small heart-shaped leaves that resembles a miniature water lily, but it's very small, like not much bigger than a quarter. So it has these small white three-petaled flowers with yellow centers that you'll see in the summer. And it just forms really dense mats. So this isn't good for the wildlife either. You can see on the surface of this pond in the bottom left that all that vegetation covering the surface is Frogbit, and it's really densely matted. It sends out runners like strawberries, so it gets all tangled together. So it's not very conducive for movement. And you can see here a picture of it next to duckweed. So if you've seen duckweed before, you know how small that is. So Frogbit is pretty small as well, but not as small as duckweed. And we do both chemical control and mechanical control with this, depending on the site. So this site here on the bottom left was chemically controlled, and that was very effective. But we do mechanical control. We do hand pulls multiple times a year at some sites as well. And then there's lots of other common invasive plants, unfortunately, in Oakland County. You got your woody invasives like autumn olive, buckthorn, and you got your garlic mustard, your Dame's rocket. So a plethora of things to deal with here. So let's talk about stewardship. What are we doing about these invasives? So we do hand pulls, both terrestrial and aquatic. We do controlled burns. We do treatments, education. I'm going to go into these things a little more. But I wanted to talk about the spring challenge just for a second again. So this is a really important way to track what you're doing. And all these things that you're tracking are super important. Like, especially for us, if you're just like mapping invasives, telling us where they are, that's super helpful for management goals for us. So make sure you tune in for that. And this is just a snapshot I stole of last year's data to show you just the kind of things you can report. So like you can do pulling, spraying, burning, monitoring, planting, cleaning up, and others. I think there's even an education category this year. So just teaching people about it is good too. And like he said earlier, over 100 or 1 million work hours valued. So that's a ton of work, and great job to everybody who participated last year. So some of the things we do for stewardship are community hand pull events. So we'll have volunteers throughout Oakland County. We do, this one was with Six Rivers Land Conservancy. We'll work with municipalities. We've worked with the trails before to hold events. So if you have an event in mind in Oakland County, just let us know and we're happy to work with you. So some plants we would pull is Dame's rocket, garlic mustard, spotted knapweed. So you can see it does make a difference when you take all that garlic mustard out. On the left is the before picture, on the right is the after. So still a lot of vegetation, but getting that invasive vegetation out of there is going to be really good for the ecosystem. We also do community woody invasive work days. So this can be done anytime except for in the spring. So in the spring, the woody invasives are shooting up sap. So if you happen to put herbicide on them during that period, it's going to be ineffective. It's going to be pushed out. So you can see clearly that's in the winter with all the snow, and this one's in the fall. So yeah, it's a pretty effective way to treat woody invasives. We have a ton of them, like buckthorns, honeysuckles, multiflora rose. It doesn't take many tools either. So you can just get some loppers if you have a chainsaw. And then you just apply herbicide to the stump within like 15 minutes, and then you're good to go for the next year. Unfortunately, just cutting them isn't going to be effective in killing the plant. So that's why we opt for the herbicide method afterwards. Another thing we do is invasive species mapping and treatment. So this is an overview of Oakland County and all the data we've collected. So on the left here, you can see all these points are different species we've collected. For example, the pinks are swallow warts. And you can actually see the trails we've surveyed by the points here. So like these black points going along from here to Rochester is the Clinton River Trail. Then we got the Pink Creek Trail, the Pollyann Trail. So lots of trail surveys have been done with the Oakland County CISMA. And we'll do reports to those trails too, tell them what they have, give them advice on where to go from there. Another big partnership we have is with the Oakland County Road Commission. So we survey all the county roads each year to find Phragmites along the roadways that could be hazardous to drivers. So you can see here all the yellow lines are roads that we've surveyed, and the green points are where there are Phragmites along those roads. So each year Road Commission goes out and they treat those Phragmites to keep it at bay and keep drivers safe. Another huge project is our European Frogbit project. So we currently have funding from 2 different grants for survey and treatment of Frogbit. We are partnering with the local watershed councils, so the Clinton, the Rouge, and the Huron, as well as Eagle. And hundreds of acres have been surveyed since we discovered it in 2018. So it was originally discovered over the border in that park there, I think it's called Waterbury, and also up here in Novi. And since then, we have discovered it throughout Novi, but thankfully it's just been contained to that one municipality. We did go outside there into a couple different other municipalities. All the yellow dots you see on the map below are negative, where Frogbit was not found, and then the turquoise is where it was found. So over the years, we've treated about 30 acres, made many outreach materials and held many workshops, and we do intern trainings every year. So lots of stewardship work is done on this project, and we plan to continue. We have funding through this next year. We also do education and presentations. So presentations about the CISMA, about invasive species. We do tabling at events. We provide brochures and information. We also host events. So I don't know if anyone has been to the annual Invasive Species Summit that's been going on for a couple of years now. We didn't have one this spring, but we're hoping to have it in the fall since we have a new coordinator on now. So just look out for that. And just overall, we're here to help you. So we provide tons of info. We have printed brochures, we have a website, we have YouTube videos. We can answer your invasive species and control questions via email, phone, or Facebook message. We can do presentations to your local groups and help with invasive work days and access to Millage Funds. So I'll talk about that next. So since we joined with Oakland County Parks, we now have access to these Millage Funds. So this helps to fund invasive species treatments and related projects. These projects must be submitted by CVTs, which is cities, villages, and townships in Oakland County, or members of the CISMA. So there's 2 different categories that we divide these projects into. The first is biodiversity and habitat restoration. So this includes treatments, prevention, and control, as well as prescribed burns. And then the second category is climate resilience and green infrastructure. So this includes things like native landscaping, tree planting, rain garden installation, education, outreach, and materials and signage. So we are mainly an invasive species organization, but we don't just care about getting rid of invasives. It's a really important step to take the next step to plant natives. So if you leave an area disturbed, invasives really like that. So you need to be putting something else there that is going to take over and make it a nice ecosystem again. So there's lots of native plant sales going on in the spring and the summer. I recommend just Googling or looking up your local organizations. There's a lot of them out there. And if you want more info on the Millage Funds, you can go ahead and scan that, or I can provide the link afterwards. So some previously funded projects from our Millage Funds included native planting, so like a prairie replanting, some native trees, and then invasive species removal and treatments, which includes the yearly Phragmites treatment along the county road right-of-ways. Also some controlled burns and ordering some boot brush stations for parks and trails. So these are important for scraping off those invasive seeds as you're going from one trail to the next. We also bought this year a giant brush mower. So this is available for CVTs to use for free. We'll send them out with our staff. So our staff operates that, and it's really good for getting rid of buckthorn, honeysuckles, any kind of small woody things. So that's available for CVTs in Oakland County. All right, so how can you help? So big thing is prevention of the spread of invasive species. So there's lots of good campaigns around here, like Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers. So you want to be cleaning and draining and drying your boats, your kayaks, any aquatic equipment. And this is actually a law in Michigan now. So you must clean, drain, and dry your boat before moving to another water body. Play, Clean, Go is another one. So you want to stop invasive species when you're out playing, whether it's walking, hiking, biking. You want to clean off your gear before you're moving it to the next location. And also your pets too. People forget to clean their pets off, but that dog fur can get burrs in it, and that'll go wherever you go. And then another one is Ripple. So this is reducing invasive pet and plant escapes. So all those pets, like fish and plants you buy, like the aquarium store, or the pet store, are often not native to Michigan. So you don't want to be releasing those pets and plants into the water bodies, because I know it feels bad to just get rid of them, but see if they have a take back program, because you don't want to be releasing them into the native waters and harming our native wildlife. And then another one, which is especially important now with the spotted lanternfly on the horizon, is don't move firewood. So firewood can be a huge vector of disease and insect larvae from different areas. So wherever you bought that firewood, you want to burn it there. You don't want to be traveling with the firewood from the lower peninsula to the upper peninsula of Michigan or like different states. So just burn it where you buy it is their motto. And then also just learning to identify invasive species and reporting them on MISN. So MISN is a really nice free app where you can look up invasive species that you see and report them. And then we at Oakland County CISMA get emails of invasives that are reported in Oakland County. So we can get early detection reports from people who are out there keeping an eye on things, because we can't be everywhere. So like the other week, we got a report for Didymo, which is an aquatic invasive that isn't present in Michigan yet. So we went out there, we took samples, sent it to the lab, got it tested, and it wasn't Didymo, thank goodness, but it's still really great to get that information to make sure. Another thing you can do is volunteer to map or remove invasive species. So whether that's with your local parks or whether that's in your own backyard, like you can make a difference. And then again, controlling invasive species on your property, you want to restore or replace them with native species, so you're not just going to have invasives coming back in. All right, I know that was pretty quick. I tend to talk fast in these. So here's our socials and contacts. So we are part of Oakland County Parks now. We still have our previous website going. We have a Facebook, a YouTube with lots of good information. Our new coordinator is Patrick, so there's his info, and then I am Emily. Here's my info, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was awesome. I feel like if I did not know the work of a CISMA, which I do, I would now. But so we have some good questions rolling in, and I encourage everybody that's watching to please submit your questions via the chat or via the Q&A function. So I'll start with one that I got in the Q&A function. Can you comment on landscaping plantings in large communities that spread into natural areas? How is the CISMA working with developers to curtail this practice?
So yeah, a lot of the local like nurseries and stuff will still spread like kind of sell questionable species. Like you still see calorie pear a lot for sale. So we are talking with local nurseries and trying to say like, hey, like you shouldn't sell that. And then whenever we promote the plant sales in the spring, we try to pick ones that are just native plants. So we want you guys to be buying natives. And there's also a really good guide out there on like common landscaping plants and what could be replaced with natives that are like kind of similar. So I'll try to find that and share that with you also.
Thank you very much. This next question, and I appreciated you starting back to the basics of like how we define invasive species, because I think that is a really important way that we understand how to prioritize different species and the impact that they're having, right? I mean, like not every non-native species is going to pose the same level of threat to our native ecosystems, and understanding that prioritization is really important. And to that end, Amy had a question in the chat. Can or does naturalization ever get used as an intentional invasive species management technique? And as a follow-up, is preservation of wild areas ever considered an invasive management strategy? So from a funding perspective, using funding to purchase, preserve, or restore natural areas.
Yeah, so I'll start with the naturalization one. So we, as a CISMA, don't intentionally naturalize anything. I know it does happen. So if there's an invasive that's already pretty naturalized, it goes lower on our priority list. Like we really want to be taking care of those newer species and the ones that are causing more harm. But they're definitely on our radar and still important. Yeah. And then can you repeat the second question? Sorry. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. So is preservation of wild areas ever considered an invasives management strategy? So from a funding perspective, could you use funding for invasive species management to purchase, preserve, or restore natural spaces?
Yeah, so the high quality areas are definitely higher up on our list of places to restore. We don't have a ton of say because we don't own a ton. We own the Oakland County parks, and they definitely do restoration there of the high quality natural areas. If people apply for millage funds with really high quality natural areas, that definitely bumps them up on the list because we really want to save those rare native plants. So that is definitely a consideration that is important to us.
Great, thank you for that. So then Renee is sharing in the chat something that I'm sure others are also familiar with, but talking about the management of invasives for the sake of native plant populations, but then the additional challenges beyond invasives that are posed to native plant populations, in particular deer. So wondering if deer is a part of the conversation for you, and if so, how are you talking about it, or how are you working on it?
So I don't deal with deer personally. I know that there are programs within the county parks where there's I think there's deer hunts sometimes, but I don't know really much about that at all. I would recommend going on the county website and looking into that, or I can try and get you in contact with the right person, but I don't work with deer personally.
Yeah, it's a complicated topic. I know that different areas, people have very different perspectives on it. So I wanted to take a moment to appreciate a couple of different things you said in your presentation. First of all, thank you for shouting out the spring challenge. Very sweet of you. And then highlighting some of the different initiatives you were talking about: clean, drain, dry, and don't move firewood. I love that you were pointing those out because these are initiatives that are often state or region wide, right? And so like having different groups, individual groups such as yours talking to your constituents about this information is really important because it is really a holistic practice. It's never going to work unless we all are on board. So we really need to spread this information widely. So wanted to shout out a couple of those groups, for these kind of regional and wider initiatives, because a lot of the time our outreach and education efforts can be specific to our geographic area. And so it's really nice to have unified messaging, things that people can recognize, signage that people recognize. So just wanted to shout that out. But then also to say one of the things that I'm really intrigued about is this millage that happened. And so I was curious, like, could you tell us a little bit about how that came about? And I guess I also had some clarifications on how the funding can specifically be used. But for other folks out there that are either coordinators or maybe volunteers in their region looking for more established stewardship funding, how did that millage come across, and how did you all champion it to get it through?
So this was mainly something Oakland County Parks worked on, and we just got lumped into it, thankfully. But yeah, it was on the ballot a couple of years ago for Oakland County residents to vote for to give additional funding to Oakland County Parks, and then part of that funding was for the CISMA as well. Yeah, I'm not sure how they got it on the ballot or anything like that. I'm just happy it happened.
No, that's great. But so then it was the because it is like a city or county government agency basically that had championed it from that and then got it on the ballot. Okay, got it. So then yeah, and obviously connections with local representatives and things like that. My parents actually live in Oakland County, and so I've been trying to let them know about stuff like that and have encourage them to vote the right ways and to they live over by Proud Lake Recreation Area, and so that's a nice spot that I used to spend a lot of time as a kid. And then so Heather asks, how were you funded prior to the millage rate? And so I think that was largely through the Michigan Invasive Species Grant Program. Is that correct?
Yes, so before that, there was competitive grant funding. So all the CISMAs in the state apply for these funds, and there's only limited funds. So we were really lucky to get funding for the past couple of years. We had a pause during COVID. All of us non-essential funding was kind of shut down, but it picked back up after that. So the main funds we get are from the MISGP, so that's Michigan Invasive Species Grant Program, and that's with the DNR. So they provided a lot of our funding before this millage passed, and we still hold our European Frogbit grant with them right now.
Great, thank you. And I want to apologize for people if I say some of these acronyms too quickly. I'm like, it's such a force of habit now. But another quick clarification on the millage itself. So I see that you're talking about project-based funding in this situation. Does that money also go towards staffing, or is that largely just project-based funding?
So this is only for projects. The county staff is paid separately, not from this. So this, yeah, for projects. So we want to get treatments done, native plants out there, like anything to improve the environment in Oakland County.
No, that's amazing. And it is, such a challenge that so many folks go through the grant process and like applying for grants and trying to understand what the requirements are and all of that. And so to have discretionary funding within the entity that you're housed in seems like it can really grease the wheels a little bit. It's like easier to kind of talk to them and coordinate on how those funds should be spent. The Stewardship Network certainly has been through similar things and would love to become a funding body of our own to help with that kind of stuff, just because we know that the nuances are sometimes really complicated, and the people on the ground are the ones that really know what to do. And so I'm really happy that Oakland County was able to do that for you all. So that's great.
Yeah, we are too. We definitely want to get that work done as best we can.
Yeah. So then, and I also really liked what you were talking about in terms of how people can get involved. That was a part of the initiatives page. But I was curious about what have you found to be the most successful efforts in educating and also like recruiting people to get involved? Because I think that is one of the things that people will, one of the challenges people face is you have the information, you share the information. That information can either be really complicated sometimes, or maybe it's overwhelming to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to get involved. And then, taking people from being informed to taking action. I just was curious if you had any stories about effective strategies you've used in that regard.
Yeah, so we've had mixed reactions with like sending out, like for our Frogbit project, we sent out a bunch of postcards to try to get people involved to let us survey, but that wasn't very effective. But actually going and talking to them in person, they're like, oh yeah, like that is a problem. Whereas like you get a piece of mail and you're like, oh, it's junk. But like actually making that human interaction and like showing people you care will make them care most of the time. And like partnering with organizations that people are already familiar with. So like the watershed councils, a lot of people know about them already. Like the Pollyant Trail, people are aware of, they use it a lot. So I felt like having those partnerships was helpful for us, which is like CISMAs aren't as well known, I feel. So that connection of partnership was helpful to getting more volunteers, getting more outreach out there. Whereas people are just wanting to protect the trail. They might not know like why or what we're protecting, but like once we're there, we can teach them, oh, this is invasive. This is not, like, this is why we're protecting it and stuff like that.
It's excellent. Thank you. There's one more question in the chat, but I just remembered one that I'm so curious about that I have to ask you briefly. Did I hear you correctly when you said you are the only single county CISMA in the state of Michigan?
Yeah, that's
That is
true.
remarkable. I don't know how
Yeah.
I didn't fully realize that, but I was curious, how did that come about? Was that a part of how like the state defined it as a part of the grant program, or was that a deliberate choice from like you based on the geography and the work that you all do? I was just curious how that came about.
So I don't know like the actual answer, but that's before my time. But I would guess because we're so like densely populated, especially in the southeast of Oakland County, that it's just it would be a lot of work to have multiple counties in that as well. So that's my guess.
I can imagine, and counties vary so widely in terms of their area and how what their makeup is even, and like you said, population. And so we see, in some areas in Michigan and beyond, multiple county, like 4 and 5 county regions that spanning just really wide ranges. And it
Yeah.
seems really hard to manage, but again, you just have to be pragmatic about the resources available. And one follow-up question to that. Could you tell us about the makeup of Oakland County, like urban versus suburban versus rural? Like, do you know the kind of general makeup of that?
So the northern part of our county is definitely more rural. People have larger properties. There's some farms. And then like the farther south you go, like towards Detroit area, it gets more populated for sure. Like our southeastern corner of the county is like the Royal Oak area, the Ferndale area. There's not much green space, but there's a lot of people. And then like in the Novae area west of there, very small properties. So it's hard to survey because you have to talk to like every single person along a water body. But yeah, so that's been a struggle. But also it's a blessing because we get to talk to more landowners and we get to get them informed and get them to care. So
That is really interesting. And I really appreciate the ways that you were specific to your specific, CISMA and collaborative, but then also the themes that are relevant to geographies all around and collaboratives all around. And that's why I asked some of these questions. It's like if someone sees a theme of like, oh, that sounds kind of similar to the makeup of my geographic area, or like, oh, this is a problem, an invasive, or even a strategy that we've used before. That's always a really nice thing to do in these webcasts. And then there is a follow-up question in the chat. Chris asks, is the road commission interested in roadside invasives other than the reeds? And he was pointing out that there's tons of buckthorn stands along roadsides in the Troy area.
So currently the only 2 species that Road Commission are treating for are Phragmites and knotweeds. That's mainly because the Phragmites are a really bad sight hazard for motorists. And then the knotweed is a really bad invasive we don't want getting into the infrastructure, like breaking up the pavement and stuff like that. So That's all they can afford right now. It would be nice in the future if we could treat all the invasives along the roadway, but don't have the funding for that at this moment.
Yeah, and I will say from firsthand experience that I had a pretty scary and impressive stand of knotweed at my house in Detroit, and I thankfully was able to, I knew what it was, you know, from this job, and told my landlord about it, and luckily they were quick to try to help me out with that, you know. But it's just you never know, and there's hardly any you know, natural areas where I'm living. So so then Lisa asks, I'm not quite sure if you mentioned the right-of-way program, but that's a pretty unique and is worth describing. Would you mind talking a little bit more of the right-of-way program?
Yeah, so let me go back to that map. So yeah, this is a really unique program we have with our county road commission. I don't think any other CISMAs in Michigan have this program. So we've been working with them like probably at least 5 or plus years now, where they help pay for it. So part of it is paid through the CISMA, and then a cost share with municipalities, and then with road commission. So the three of those entities would pay for it. So yeah, it is a lot of work. There's a lot of county roads. So we tend to have a rotating 3-year basis where every section of the county is surveyed once per every 3 years. So we're not doing every single road every year, because that would be impossible. But yeah, it's definitely helped. The patches of Phragmites have decreased over time. It's helped with sight distance, and yeah, I mean, it is helpful to get the stuff at the very edge of the road. It'd be nice to get everything beyond the edge of the road, but we can only do so much. But we're very thankful for what we can do with this program.
Yeah, that sounds like a great partnership for sure. Well, thank you so much, Emily. Really, really appreciate you. Did you have any final thoughts or comments before we transition to the outro?
Thanks for having me. It's always good to see the Stewardship Network folks, virtually or in person, and make sure you check out the Spring Challenge. It's a good way to get outside, have a purpose, and teach others about invasives. So get out
Thank
there.
you
And
so
take
very
care.
much. Yeah, and so I'll go into our I'll steal the screen share from you if you don't mind, and go into our final outro slides. So once again, we encourage everybody to report and donate. The forms are open now, so please visit stewardshipnetwork.org/report or stewardshipnetwork.org/donate. The forms are open from April 12th today until June 30th. And we encourage you to check out our next monthly webcast. So that will be on May 10th, 2023. And we will be talking with Kat Superfisky on managing urban ecosystems from the city of Los Angeles. So don't miss that. Check it out. You can register for that now via our website. And once again, thank you so very much. Thank you, Emily. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Love doing these. Lisa, I hope I did a good job. And you all have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful rest of the week. And we will see you again soon.